the first ever Cloud Custodian community meeting. I'm going to be your host for this first meeting. My name is George Castro, and thank you everyone for showing up. I'm going to go over some quick formatting, and then we'll get into some introductions, and then we'll get started here. So all of the meeting docs here, I'm going to plan on taking them all. I'll be using Markdown, and I will be checking these into GitHub on a regular basis and posting those results to the list so that everyone has that information. I've got the meeting URL at the same place in the notes every time, so you can just click through, as well as a time zone converter. So if you click through here, it will, I've elected to choose some locations around the world. So if you want to add your favorite location or where you're at, my intent here is to just kind of maintain when time zones happen for contributors and things like that, and keep this always up to date. The idea being you could just click through and always get to the meeting. I'm going to be your host today. Ideally, I would love to get us to a point where we can have guest hosts and things like that, celebrity hosts and all sorts of fun things like that. And then I'll be adding the permanent link to the notes where this will live in GitHub, as well as URL to the actual YouTube recording that we have. So each of the notes have that. And then we'll do the obvious things like keep a playlist of all the meetings so you can catch up when you're on the road, all that kind of good stuff. And with that, the first thing we have is some agenda items. So I figure the first thing that we could do is basically do some introductions. Obviously, this is our very first one, so I wanted to take some time to get to know each other. I kind of picked a format for this meeting with an open agenda. However, I'm not really wedded to any of those things. And we're kind of just going to just start having these and making adjustments as we see fit. I know lots of us come from other open source projects or, have seen how other projects run meetings and things like that. So there's really lots of different ways you could do it. I figured I would start with this style, and then we could adjust based on our culture and how we see fit and things like that. So with that, I figure we'll do introductions. So let's give it about 36 seconds per person. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to pick someone, and then that person's going to introduce themselves, and they're going to introduce themselves. So let's start with your name, where you're from, and maybe what you're looking to get out of the community meeting, or maybe Cloud Custodian itself. Obviously, some of us are using this kind of stuff, so just tell us, I don't know, I guess, why you're here without making it why you're here. And also don't forget to mention your pronouns. So I am George Castro, he, him, his. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I've just recently spent the last few years working in the Kubernetes and Kubeflow communities. And I've started at Stacklet now to kind of help organize things like this and do stuff like this. In the notes later, I'll show you where I keep my notes and my board. And basically my job is to help all of you have a good time and get what you need out of the project. So with that, Todd, since you arrived early, I'm going to pick you to go next.
Okay. My name's Todd Stansel. I guess he, him, whatever. I don't know. And I actually work at 23andMe, and we started using Cloud Custodian a couple of years ago, and I ended up contributing a lot of code. And so I'm like the sole maintainer and sole runner of that infrastructure at our company. And so then at one point, Kapil asked me if I wanted to be a co-maintainer for the AWS site, because that's the part that we use. So yeah, so I've been working with it for a couple of years now. Oh, and I live in Folsom, California.
Ooh.
So not the prison.
Wholesome.
All right, who are you picking next?
Oh, I'll pick AJ, because he's one of the few folks that I have actually interacted with recently.
Oh, thanks. So I am AJ. I've used Cloud Custodian in the past at work. It probably sounds like a similar situation to what Todd did or is doing, and similar path. Used it, loved it, used it a lot internally, and started contributing, and found my way to Stacklet from there. And now I'm trying to work on it more. So from this meeting, I'm just hoping to find out where everybody else is coming from and help focus the effort in a good direction. And from there, let's go to Liz. Oh, he, him, pronouns, forget. Yep, Liz.
Hi, my name is Liz. Pronouns are she, her. I come to Cloud Custodian through Stacklet, actually, where I am a developer advocate. So I am actually totally brand new to open source and more or less actually the Cloud Custodian. And as your developer advocate, I am here to listen and advocate and help build community. So hoping I will be hanging out with y'all a lot more. Oh, and I am in San Francisco, California. Well, right now it is wet outside, despite it being the summer, but that's actually pretty normal. So yeah, with that, I'm going to hand the mic off to Marco.
Hey everyone, Marco, he, him. I live in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I've been using cloud and cloud stuff for a while, container-based stuff and cloud. I come through to the Cloud Custodian community by way of Kapil and Stacklet, and I've been using it on and off for probably last year now. And so here to help learn more about how the community needs to grow and what we can do to assist. I'll pick Alfred.
Hello, I'm Alfred. I used to work at Capital One, where I first learned about Cloud Custodian, and from there moved to AWS, and then afterwards to Stacklet. I'd like to just attend these meetings to keep a finger on the pulse and, have an awareness of the current state of what's going on with C7N and the contributors. That's pretty much it for me. I'll pass it to Sunny.
Hey everyone, Sunny, he, him. I'm on GitHub at This Is She, so you've probably seen me around. Been on the contributing side for probably like 4 years now. Work mostly in the AWS provider, as well as just general core stuff. Looking to stay more active on the contributing side of things. With this meeting, I think it'll help, keep a steady push progress, I guess. Currently at Stacklet, previously Blue at Capital One. So yeah, looking forward to all the great stuff. I will throw it over to Jameson.
Thanks, Sunny. I'm Jameson Roberts, he, him. I live in Castle Rock, Colorado, and I've been using Cloud Custodian for several years here. Came from a company called Transamerica Aegon, where we had a large implementation of Cloud Custodian and kind of started contributing to the community and open source a few years back. And yeah, try and stay on top of the community within Gitter and the different channels to kind of see what's up and what new users are up to. And so out of this meeting, I'm just dropping in here to kind of listen and see what the community has, thoughts, around features, issues, all that kind of stuff, to see where I can be helpful and kind of, things that we can work on to make Cloud Custodian even better. So yeah, currently I'm working at Stacklet as a solutions architect and develop lots and lots of policies. So I'm going to actually pass it along to good buddy of mine, Fawn, who I've been talking to for a while.
Hey, Jameson. Good to see you, fellas. I've actually missed you quite a bit, but
Same here.
I won't cry too many tears. But in any case, yeah, found this word with Palo Alto Networks. Definitely gone through quite a bit of work with the Stacklet team, and been a big fan of Cloud Custodian for several years, and still the promoter of it. Use it pretty much every day for very specific ad hoc queries, supporting security incident investigations, part of the InfoSec team. And I hope to contribute in my individual capacity since I'll probably be limited in my official capacity to contribute. But love the Stacklet crew. Big fan of the founders, and now looking forward to this. And thanks for kicking this off. I appreciate this. This is awesome. Now, who will I? Sunny. Oh, Sunny's next. Oh, he, him.
Oh, sorry, I already went, but I think
Losing track here.
Wayne hasn't gone.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, so Wayne Witzel, here, like many others, via Stacklet, and my main reason for attending is I'm interested in starting to get into some of the Kubernetes support for C7N, and just kind of starting to hang out and absorb some of just the baseline C7N knowledge, so that I could hopefully potentially start to contribute to the Kate support upstream. And let's see.
Check
Travis.
chat. You have some options there.
Yeah. I pulled it up. Travis.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks, George, for hosting. My name is Travis. I think everybody knows me. Pronouns he, him, his. I am here to show support. Certainly interested in staying in touch with the community and the topics that matter most to it. So I am going to pass to Kapil.
Hi, my name is Kapil. I am generally pronoun neutral. I will respond to all. And yeah, thank you, George, for putting this together. Super looking forward to it. I was super nervous about doing one of these for the last few years, which is why they've never been done before outside of in person. So looking forward to getting it going and seeing what kind of flow we can get on some of our PR backlog, because it's definitely stretched out over the last few months, and I think we're starting to make some progress on whittling it down. So looking forward to it. I will pass to maybe I shouldn't pass to Michael since he just joined. But let's see. I guess I'll pass to Amir.
Hey everyone, my name is Amir, he, him. I'm based out of Jersey, and I'm here to support George and List in helping build an engaging community. And I work at Stacklet. In the past, I've worked on Spiffy Inspire projects as well. And I'll pick Dean.
All right, thanks, Amir. So I'm Dean, he, him, his. I join also by way of Stacklet. Long-time history, Linux, open source, cloud tech, coming from Canonical, working on Ubuntu, and I recently joined Stacklet to work in engineering. And I'm here to just get up to speed and help George get to know what's going on and see what I can do to help. And let's see, I will pass to Ramachandran.
Oh, hey, this is Ram here. That's a big name. You can call me Ram. I'm from India, and this is the first meeting that I'm attending at a community level. And I've been using Cloud Custodian for a year right now, not in production, but at my personal level. And I'm just here to learn new things. I don't have any specific agenda from my side. And nice to meet you guys.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
And Michael, that leaves you, unless you don't want to say hello.
Talking to me?
Yeah, I think it's the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I just joined. I've got 15 minutes in between my meetings, so
right.
I'm with Tyson Foods, and we've been using Cloud Custodian for about 3 years now. We've been in the cloud for a little longer than that, and we use it extensively for production, non-production, everything. And I'm just here to see what what we can do. I don't know.
Awesome. Great.
Welcome, Michael.
And
And we have another Michael.
Another
So-
Michael just joined. If you want to say hello, Michael, we're just doing intros.
Yeah, hi, Michael Jones. I'm with Pyramid Technologies. I'm a cloud architect / engineer.
Awesome. Great.
Good to see you, Michael.
Right. I love all the.
Kapil. I see Kapil there. How you doing, Kapil?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
All right. So I'm glad everyone came to make it. Like I said, this is our first one, so it was kind of key for me to see like who's going to show up, who's going to be here. Obviously, a lot of my coworkers from Stacklet are here as well. However, if over the next few months, I'm hoping to get as many people from many affiliations as possible. So if in 6 months the Stacklet people are still outnumbering everybody else, I don't know. Maybe I'm in trouble. But I'm really glad everyone took time out of their day to come and do this. So I wanted to share a few things that I've been working on here. Is I've started a community repo in GitHub here, and you might have seen this from other CNCF projects. And I'm going to kind of start keeping track of meta things in here that might or might not affect the community. And I've started to organize it actually around a board. So as I've been learning a lot about Cloud Custodian, seeing how the docs are laid out, things like that, I started to note things down, things like, hey, maybe we should have a regular meeting. GitHub has new cool templates out. Should we use those? Things like that. So I've been starting to actually file these as issues in this repo. And you all can kind of consider this as the, hey, I kind of found something. It might be a good idea for us to look at this, but I don't have time to do that. Anyone in this, in the community, feel free to either file an issue here, or you can ping me on chat or during one of the meetings, and I'd be happy to kind of put that on the board here. I'm sort of prioritizing my work around this board for a few reasons. A, to keep it open to everybody so you can kind of see what I'm working on and see if it's interesting to you. And B, to kind of show you what community level style things I'm working on, so that if you have an experience in that field or something, or you have a strong opinion, you can ping me about it. So there are some things that I'll be reviewing here. You might have seen with other projects, things like having an office hours program. Who's the person grabbing all the Q&A, the facts from chat and collating those into something useful, things like that. So I'm starting to kind of investigate all sorts of things like that, kind of the typical community manager thing. And I will plan on having that always be living at this board in public, so anyone can go ahead and do that. I don't really anticipate myself having any private agenda items there. So I've tossed those links in the notes there. Does anybody have any questions about that, or how we're going to proceed with that? Okay, the next is agenda items. So the good thing is I'm planning on having open agenda basically at the start of every meeting. So I'll usually put together the notes for the next week, the day after this meeting, and I'll keep those in an obvious place. And I'll probably over communicate a little bit too much on the mailing list as to, hey, reminder, the next meeting's coming, here are the open agenda items. If you would like to see an agenda item kind of addressed during this meeting, we could just plop that directly in the notes. I'm using a tool called HackMD. I've got the URL in the notes. You basically just sign in with your GitHub account, and then you can add your thing there, and then we'll address it during the meeting. Think of that as kind of your relief valve. Maybe you have a pull request or something that you want to get some attention to, that kind of thing, or maybe you have a proposal that you like to bring forth for the community. I've had Kapil kind of seed one or two of them, and I've done a few myself, so we can just kind of start getting through the motions. And as we figure out how we're going to do this, we can figure out, hey, maybe we need more time around agenda items and maybe less time around the pull request party. And then for the last quarter of the meeting, we'd like to do what we call a pull request party. I've had some people saying, well, I'm sure a lot of you have known Kapil for a long time, and figuring out what is in his brain is kind of part of the puzzle in itself. So one of the things that we'd like to do is get started is basically kind of having PRs like on a hit list as they're coming into the repo, so that the authors of those PRs and Kapil could kind of review them. We could review them in a high bandwidth manner and basically get the knowledge that we want out of his brain and into more people's kit bags so that we can scale and things like that. Does anybody have any questions or opinions about that? Because we've got a few lined up. So there's that. And of course, as always, I know everybody's busy. So if you need to bail or something at all during any time of the meetings, feel free to just skate in and out as necessary. And no judgment, no harm, no foul there. I know everyone's busy and we appreciate your time. Anybody have any opinions on this so far or feedback or anything? I got a thumbs up from Todd, Travis, and Marco. All right, nonverbal community. You all are going to make me talk by myself for 45 minutes, aren't you? I can tell already. All right. With that,
we're shy, George.
I know.
This is a very introverted crowd.
Yes, yeah. Nobody has any opinions until we start talking about designs, I'm sure. And with that, we have any agenda items here. We have one that Kapil added that I'm going to bring up right away, and that is an enhancements. Oh, we got a new person here. Thank you. Marco, are you just handling new people who show up to the meeting? Is that you?
I'm adding the notes for you as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. Hi, Rohit. Welcome. You want to introduce yourself, or you just want to sit in the back? You can go either way. You're on mute.
Now I'm sitting in the background right now.
All right. Awesome. Welcome. All right. So agenda items, I'm going to leave that there. If you have a topic that you want to discuss for today, feel free to just whack it in there in the notes. I'm going to stick, Marco is going, can I do this? Marco is going to stick the URL to the HackMD in chat. If you want to get into the raw notes. And if you have something that's kind of too big to tackle or whatever, feel free to stick it in the backlog. And that's what I did for an agenda item that I'd like to talk about Slack next time, unless people really want to start talking about it today. But I don't know if we wanted our first meeting to be that controversial. So Kapil added an enhancements feature process. Kapil, what do you have in mind for here?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of larger projects or more established projects end up with some semi-formalized enhancement process, like, and go back to like Python PEP or like Python enhancement proposal process or Kubernetes KEP, Kubernetes enhancement proposal process. And the notion is basically, so generally speaking, stating we haven't done that. We have tried to do it as in the form of issues, like a GitHub issue that then gets sort of discussion, but like for longer form documents, it's not clear if that's really the right way to get the best review on the document as it's getting updated. And so, because if it's GitHub issue, if you have it in the main ticket description, if it gets revised over time, then you lose sort of the context of the comments below it get lost as far as how they apply to the document. And like a pull request, the biggest issue with GitHub pull requests in this context is they work for the initial pull request, but after they're merged, it's really hard to comment on them. And so, at least for the policy testing spec, what we did was we did a GitHub issue. I think Marco authored the document, and then it was like a Google Doc that we linked into the issue so that anyone could put comments on, like, how do we get to better policy testing? And so, like, at least some of the things I feel like are longer impact and hard to see the full direction on by inferring from pull requests, especially on larger pull requests. I think TJ's got some that I know there's something there, and I just don't know where it's going. And I'm like, it would be really helpful to try to understand it and comment on it in the form of what's the sort of the plan and the vision around it. And this TJ's got one around that he's been very, very, very passionate about around error handling in actions, and so just trying to figure out how we scale larger feature work in a way that actually gets gets the right amount of discussion about something, and can also serve as a living artifact for people coming into the project in the future. Like, does it go into the repo? Does it get merged into our Sphinx stock builds?
Right.
And so I've seen every community do everything every which way at this point. Like I think like we're currently doing a bunch of our CNCF stuff, and they say do it in Google Drive for discussion, and then convert it to Markdown for committing to the repo via PR.
Right.
Which also feels a little weird. I mean, it's fine. It feels a little weird, not only that you're reformatting it to reflow your whole document at the end of the review, which may engender more review. But yeah, so just general discussion. Like for longer form features, policy testing is one, error handling is another one. Pulling out C7N core from C7N is potentially another one. Like what do people feel like is the right way to do that? And I'll throw out a straw person I think we potentially outgrowing issues for longer form discussion, and we should try a Google Doc potentially. So that everyone can comment in on directly the line item content they care about. Hi, Michael.
I'll comment that internally we do Google Docs for that same purpose, design review, comments, all that kind of stuff. And we have found that much more successful in having actual engaging discussions and focusing on decisions and things like that. And then, similarly, once we're done, the final decisions end up getting put into a Confluence doc or something like that as okay, here's our policy or whatever we're discussing, right? But Google Docs has definitely worked fairly well. I don't know how that would play into something like this, where you've got Google Docs and you've got GitHub and like different platforms.
I mean,
that's the part that I agree is kind of kludgy, sort of, but at the same time, the format works.
Yeah, I think Google Docs just has a better experience for commenting and feedback. I think the way it would probably work then is sort of what we trialed with the policy testing stuff, where you file an issue, so a maintainer drops with the Google Doc and spec it as a proposal or a spec, and we add the proposal label to it, the GitHub issue, and then those are quickly browsable. Potentially add it to the roadmap backlog. I think in that context, we would also trigger a discussion in a follow-up meeting of this community meeting for like if there's not clear. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And like if there's actually questions that when you high bandwidth communication, this is probably the right channel for it.
So would you propose it's like we'd have a Google Doc template that's basically like, Cloud Custodian design proposal, and then you have like what fields, and then that would live.
It's probably more paragraph as a template. Like what's the problem? What's current state? What's the future state? What's the solution? And backwards compatibility impacts, various other operational considerations potentially.
Okay.
Is there a potential problem where if we have a bunch of people opening up GDocs and that person deletes their Google account, we then potentially lose that spec?
Conceivable.
Maybe is there possible to make a workflow where we can have someone say, I want to write a new spec, and it launches a Google Doc that's editable by everyone in the community?
People delete their Google accounts?
In a single, I don't know, org or account or something? I agree with like Todd's assessment. Like Google Docs are really nice for collaboration, both from like an editing perspective, but as well from like a commenting and feedback loop. But there are some sticky things that come where in an org, like in a company, it's a lot easier to manage the domain of that, where we could potentially lose good specs just because someone's Google account gets deleted, or they go inactive or something.
Yeah, I mean, we can, like, if I think we could potentially make guidance. Hey, let's use a personal account. Okay, there's also orgs that block G Suite and orgs that block Slack, and unfortunately, as a tool that plays in somewhat of an enterprise UI space, we run across those organizations rather frequently. Which is one of the reasons why we're on Gitter, is because it's just a web app and no one thinks to block it. Those are fine and fair points. I mean, we could that could be a legitimate reason for why the final merge would actually transfer it into Markdown or REST, Markdown preferred, so that we can actually publish it to, like, I would imagine that they're on the Custodian.io website under docs, there would be like a specs direction there that would have an archival form of the spec itself.
Is it worth having a Cloud Custodian Google account of some sort that these docs become owned by after they're complete, so that they can live on and
I mean,
be maintained by Cloud Custodian?
Yeah, there is a Cloud Custodian G Suite domain. We could associate them to that. I guess that would be viable.
I can.
But I do like the part. So I mean, if we did that, it would effectively lose comment history because they wouldn't transfer across, like, the re-import or the copy. So it would just it would keep a pristine copy of the content, but of potentially the final form or whatever point we snapshotted it. But I think ideally directing people to try to get it merged into the actual repo would lead to it being published as part of the official docs. Might be a better channel, because if we just copy a snapshot, we're going to lose all the comment history. And how's that different than the final archive form, which would be published through the website? Would be the only differential there that I don't see.
It seems like one of the main benefits of having this in Google Docs is to be able to go back and reference all the comments and decisions and why things went the direction they did, as opposed to, okay, here's the final. So having that context, kind of like PR history, right? And looking at all the discussions there, in my opinion, anyway, it's valid. It is valuable stuff to maintain if we can.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but how would a community member be able to do that? Like, say I'm a brand new contributor, I have this great idea, I want to write a spec, I use my personal or my corporate G Suite, and I create a doc. And it gets feedback and commentary, we're like, okay, this looks good to go. You don't transfer the doc ownership per se. And to create a clean copy, you'd actually make a copy of the content, which would lose all the comment history per se, is my understanding. So, and you do that probably at the end of the process. So I don't know that you have the full history that you're referencing. You potentially have document revision history in the copy, but you wouldn't necessarily have comment history.
I took an item to investigate if transferring a Google Doc from one person to another would preserve all the comment history.
And you're going to run into org policies if they use a corporate account as well.
Making this too easy there. So, okay. So I'll also investigate, whether having like a C7N G Suite makes sense. Maybe someone shows up and says, hey, I have an idea, and someone in the org makes them a document that's kind of a blank.
I'm just wondering, wouldn't one still, maybe submit a issue, and then say, sort of the issue type is, request for comment type of document, and then one of the, custodian maintainers, creates the doc, links it to the issue. So we still have, tracking, like if we search the issues, most of folks new to GitHub first search issues, get the issue, they get the link to the doc, and then they can add the comments there. So that way, of course, you keep ownership, and then yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, but then we're in the process of asking people on a GitHub issue, what's your email address and stuff as well. I mean, going back to the original problem, it happens, but does it happen that often that we should be working around a whole process around working around it, like of someone's account getting deleted, etc. Now, we used to work at the Library of Congress, and I do understand the preservation of history, but are we maybe overthinking it? Would be the other question, because I really don't like. Do we want to be asking people for their email address in public forums and channels? That also feels a little strange too, which we would need to do to pre-create the document and assign them edit rights, because generally speaking, GitHub usernames do not track back to people easily without verbal confirmations.
So maybe a way to help here would be I have items to investigate the workflow there. Why don't we concentrate on what you would like to see the process to be as far as, inception, review, approval, implementation. And then I can come back with kind of, here are options for workflows. That way we're making progress on what we think the actual process itself would be like, and not talk about
generally
GDoc limitations for 20 more minutes. You know what I mean? Like, what would you like to see? Like,
the first enhancement proposal generally is the one that defines the enhancement proposal process itself. So
right.
So we could do that. Run this through that.
Okay. So right. Kapil, was that you volunteering to do the first design proposal, or me drafting something as a proposal for everyone to kind of wail on, which is totally fine.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. All right, and then we can go from there. Anybody else have strong opinions on design docs? Seems like a straightforward thing all open source projects go through. So, all right, going once. Anything left for design proposals? Awesome. All right. Well, that concludes our first seated agenda item. I've got a few for next week, but in interest of time, we're going to kick over to the PR review now. So I guess what we'll do is kind of close the meeting here, unless anybody has any questions or things like that. And then we could just do PR reviews for a little bit. And I guess that kind of concludes the formal part of the meeting. Does anybody have any comments, questions, agendas for next time? Anything you'd like to see me address while I have you here? Of course, everyone's welcome to stay for the PRs as well. All right.
Thanks, George.
Okay, so I guess Kapil and I will continue talking to each other. This time we're going to bring in some PR folks. Scrolling down here for the PR reviews that we're going to review today, we're going to start with app autoscaling. And who's this? I'm still learning everybody's GitHub handles. So CP Lee, I don't think they're in this meeting, right? Kapil, did you want to go over this one, or we have these in order-ish, I think.
So generally, this PR looks awesome. It adds in application auto scaling. I think there were some questions that it was re-implementing tagging and having it reuse. I think the existing tag actions was the only real thing, I think, as far as making it work. So I think it just needs some maintainer time to go back through and make sure that we're not duplicating existing capabilities out of band, like our as one-offs for a particular thing. Seems well tested. Maybe it's been updated.
So I'm going to call this one probably ready to merge.
It probably needs a review just to verify that. I think he's actually gotten some of those last bits in. So yeah, potentially.
Okay, so I'm gonna tag it this way.
Oh yeah. Okay. Maybe.
Okay, and you're doing this one.
Sure. Do we have any GCP users? Oh, yes, Michael left. Next one is ion filters. This one is basically lots of GCP resources have embedded IM docs. This adds a ability to do filtering on resources based on their embedded IM docs, but it's effectively just doing a raw JMS path query against the raw doc, which tends to not be particularly useful for expressing any semantic intent, is the concern. I linked in the PR to a prior PR around this that wasn't as flushed out. I mean, the upside is this actually covers a lot of resources. I think there were two things. One, using like the method action base subclass to get the resource, or the method filter base subclass to get the resource IM doc. The second was to try to express semantic intent, whereas the other PR allowed you to specify like scope and binding, which allows for being able to say things like, hey, am I giving any grants to users outside of my domain? I think one of the challenges is just trying to express that type of logic with a raw JMS path expression. It's generally not non-trivial or generally not viable. So in terms of getting that merged, I think it's a question of can we layer that behavior on in a compatible way, and then can we use a method filter as a base class just to simplify some of the internal logic. And we only have a handful of GCP active maintainers. One is in Eastern Europe, so this time zone doesn't work out, or meeting time doesn't work out. The other one's in DC, but I don't know if they saw the invite.
So is this one also yours for now? Is what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can ping one of the other folks on GCP as well, but yeah.
And then in the notes here, I'll put we'll just put GCP familiar folks. Welcome to dive in or pink appeal. What are we?
I think there's already one that's on the PR itself.
Take a look. Do that. How's that?
So, yeah, Austin already commented on it.
Yeah. And is there anybody who wants to look at the previous PR as well? This app auto scaling. Is anyone comfortable also looking at that as well? Or want to dive into that one? I am going to try my hardest to ensure that they all don't just say assigned a Capil for every PR. So I'm going to try to find some ways to shove some of you in there. Looking at you, Wayne. But if not, we can move over to this this GCP folder one.
Yeah, this one's got a bunch of stuff in it. It's not just related to GCP folders.
Yeah.
It does have some GCP folder stuff. It's currently failing CI because it needs a little bit more coverage. Besides, this is basically allowing you to take in project hierarchy into account as you're building out actions, and then a specific implementation around propagating labels and folder hierarchies. But additionally to that, it also enables a capability that applies to the other providers with regards to source propagation. If you're doing like source config or source cloud asset inventory or source resource graph in Azure, notion is as you're going through related resource filters that initial source propagates to the related resources if they support that. Right now, it just needs some more unit tests to get the coverage up to pass on CI.
Okay.
But it's got some things, other things. The source propagation thing is something I definitely would like to see land sooner rather than later.
Yep. All right. Any other comments on this one?
No.
All right. AWS Contrib Docs.
Yeah, so this is someone who went through. They did. This is actually it's a small team of folks that went through and they did a few PRs, and then they went through and were trying to tidy up the contribution documentations. It's already been reviewed. I think it looks good.
Okay.
I think the question there would be they need a little bit of help on getting through why Sphinx is barfing on them, and so. Basically, it's filling CI right now. Basically, in CI, we also build the docs, and that's not currently working with this particular PR. And that just needs someone to dig into why and potentially deal with the fix, the push on the fix.
Now we're talking. Anyone have Sphinx
Yeah.
experience? Want to
I'll take-
volunteer here?
I'll take this one.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
I think this one's actually the one where with the diff error, not Sphinx.
Oh.
The code diff.
Yeah, CodeCov is showing a failure in diff, so I can help suss out why.
CI failures. Perfectly. All right. Marco's going to save the day there. All right.
Right. That was you're right. That was a CodeCov failure.
All right. Now we're making progress. We ready for the next one?
Yeah, this one I don't understand. I'm just waiting for someone to explain it to me.
Allow custom periods to be used CPU utilization filters.
This is the issue. Let's go to the PR. Well, I mean, this is the issue where he describes it.
Uh-huh.
And then I looked at the PR. I'm like, all you're really doing is pulling all the metric client side to re-implement the server side filters client side, and I feel like I'm missing something about why.
Is this a PR here?
Doing like max and sum and average client side solves the use case versus passing it to the server.
Let's see, AJ mentioned this. This was a previous PR from AJ.
Yeah, that was related. It was a bit tangential to the issue in that 6301. I am happy to go back in and have a look at this. So you can put me down for this one only because I've had this discussion and commented on either the issue or the PR.
Okay.
And I think I understand it, and then I don't look at it for a while, and then I have to go back and figure it out again.
Sure.
So yeah, it would be a good idea to write that down.
Yeah. All right, 2 volunteers so far. That's right. We'll be unstoppable. All right. Let's try to get in 2 more here. Don't worry, I got it. Don't worry, Wayne. I'll find you one. AWS policy layer support.
This is basically just quality of life thing. We should just do it. It'll change. Effectively, this is basically Custodian when you go to provisional Lambda policy, automatically creating its own layer and associating it to Lambda functions. The problem is this is specific to AWS. Generally, the SDK revs faster than Lambda revs versions. once a year, twice a year. The SDK is rev every other day. And so we're constantly at a point where we do a release. Everything looks great. People go to update their functions. It doesn't work. And then they have to manually add layering to their policies, which is supported. But it would be nice if that was just an out of the box experience.
Okay, so how am I summarizing this here for the notes?
Needs more work. There's potentially compatibility considerations. I mean, I think that PR actually works. It will change some of the runtime behavior. It has to deal with people that already have the manual specification, and I think I dealt with that. If it was just Bodo and just the Bodo stack, we ran with. We didn't. We still kept doing the auto layer stuff. If they had specified any other dependencies, then sorry, if they had a manual dependency specification on a layer, we used it.
Sure.
And if they didn't, then if they just did a package specification, then we continue to do the old thing unless the packages were just the Bodo packages, in which case we used our auto layer.
Okay. So both the issues closed and all the mentions and PRs are closed. So is there like a current open, everything you just said, is there a current?
Yeah, that PR is openable. I think I played around with it and I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be good or bad. See, yeah, there's my open close. And I was like, decision, indecision.
So are we reopening this maybe with a, hey, let's have a rethink, not this one? What's the
Yeah, there's still this just needs work. I don't know that it's per se controversial. I don't know. I'd actually be curious for any feedback from people if they think there's any reason why this is not a good idea.
It is a good idea. That's my opinion.
Then it just needs some work to get done.
Yeah,
because we had to do our own layering and distribution of layers and all that kind of stuff, which in itself is a pain in the butt. So if C7N did all that automatically, that would simplify life.
So do we want to reopen this and maybe retitle it or reset? How do we want to, hey, keep this open to remind our future selves to work on it is a legitimate
the
status.
name and purpose hasn't changed. I think it's just a question of doing the legwork and making sure that there's I think a couple edge cases that we just have to deal with as far as making sure that we're keeping good compatibility with any extant setups that people have done previously to work around this issue.
This needs a rethink, but in general, we want to do this. Do we want to file a brand new issue?
It's not an issue. It's a PR, and it doesn't need a rethink. It just needs to be carefully vetted for compatibility. Let's say.
Yeah, I more meant as like a tracking.
There's a number of issues I think open that are related.
Okay, all right. So there's a number of issues around this. Okay, so this is just maybe something that sit on a backlog, and then we'll get back to this. Is that reasonable? Ish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the last one I want to do today is convert tags.
So this TJ, this is you. I was trying to figure this out. It's like we're trading a bunch of one-liners for a 50-liner, and I was
I'll give you some background here. So I ran across this while messing with all the event handling stuff and changing things around and restructuring. It comes in mostly when you have resources calling the resource tagging API bits or resources calling another class of a resource and doing sharing and things like that, where they're passing in tags to go. There were a handful of places where I have basically you have to know this function over here expects tags in the traditional list form versus a dictionary form, and this function over here, assumes that it's in dictionary form. And so it felt cumbersome and difficult. And so I ended up writing this conversion thing where you can just specify, okay, I want to take a set of tags in whatever form they are currently in, and I want to manipulate them in list form, or I want to manipulate them in dictionary form, and easily convert between them. And it felt like it.
I was wondering, can you give an example of the problem? Because I feel like on the tag functions that are on the actions, let's say, that are, say, what we're using internally, most of those are normalized to the array of key value, the key value dictionary format, array of key value dictionary format.
I haven't looked at this PR in so long, I can't remember the exact details now. I'd have to go through the PR, and there's definitely places where having a function cleans up a lot of the code so that there isn't so much duplication on, okay, I'm expecting that the input here is list form, and I'm explicitly converting it over to dictionary form so that I can manipulate it, right, and adjust the values. And then I convert it back to list form again to then pass it to the resource tagging API, I think, or I can't remember the details. But that's the general concept. And so there was definitely a need to simplify converting from one form to another. And so I wrote the function, and I'm like, well, why don't we just convert all the use cases to use this function? And it actually, in my opinion, cleans up the code in that it's clearer on the intent of what you're doing in that code. So for readability, it felt cleaner. So that's why I went down that road with all the changes, pretty much anywhere that we were going to be manipulating tags. I could dig further into it and give more specific reasons of where this felt like an issue and why it came to be. But I haven't looked at this code since I submitted it, so I don't remember at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned the usage of the other resource tag actions and stuff. So is this more related to copy related tag and errors that come up out of there?
Yeah, some of it's related to that. Yeah, where you've got one resource and you're trying to copy tags from another type of resource, and this resource assumed, there were a couple of resources where the way that AWS presents it, I don't think is entirely consistent in the traditional list form. There were a couple of edge cases where it comes in dictionary form or something. And so you have to know, okay, I need to pass this to this other function over here, but that assumes that it's in dictionary form, whereas using everything in list form. And so it just felt complicated. And if you could just pass a set of tags from one function to another, and then that function would just convert it to whatever form it needed internally, then that would simplify the cooperation. That was the intent. So
there was, on the implementation, I think the only comment I had was that it's got a large inner function as a static closure that didn't need to be. That might be nicer to define as a private function at the top scope as opposed to doing a closure, because the closure it didn't need to be a closure, the inline function aspect of it. It's sort of like a convert tags with a big body that's the actual separate function inside. I think just pulling that up to the top level. I'll drop a comment in the PR. Readability aspect, I don't know. It's one-liner for one-liner to me, so part of it's list comprehensions. The reuse aspect, especially around copy-related tags, is potentially valuable and meaningful. Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit past time, but Liz and AJ, y'all going to team up on that one together? Liz was looking for someone to pair with on that PR.
Do you want to do that, AJ?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. We can we can get together on that one.
Yeah.
Radical.
Awesome. And with that, I know people have meetings and they're busy all day. So this is basically how we're going to roll. So if you have any feedback, good, positive, you're not going to hurt my feelings. We just want to make stuff efficient like this. And then we'll just keep rolling. With that, keep your eyes out on the list and I'll be sending up the minutes, a link to the videos and all the good stuff. And with that, thank you so much. Those of you that, thanks for supporting our first meeting.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks
All
for
right.
joining.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.